everybody. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, it's nice to see you.
You too.
It's not even a joke. It's been busy lately.
Why is that? All right, it's good to be together tonight. And it's good to be with all of you guys. So the last time we were all together, it was on election eve. And we were with Connie Schultz, and she was reminding us all to breathe. So if you're anything like me, and I know you are, the fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been elected, I mean, what a massive relief. I have such a sense of just gratitude, feeling like, okay, this is a world maybe we can raise our kids in a little bit more easily. And I'm also amazed at all the work that we have done together and so proud at the shifts that we saw in this election cycle in the suburbs. And yet, what the hell is happening with Trump? I mean, here's the thing that I got to preface this conversation with first.
That's a very open-ended question.
Okay, but here's the thing. We're going to talk about these issues and everything that's going on right now. And you have some expertise that's going to help us out with this. That's why I invited you. But I just want to say it at the outset, like the comment, like the question, what the hell is going on with Trump, could literally have been asked at any week during his entire presidency.
It's an evergreen question.
It is. So first, I don't know. I just let's keep some perspective on that. That I'm not sure if he was acting normally right now, that would actually be the unexpected thing. Just right. But okay, first let me introduce Jeremy. This is my husband, Jeremy. Hi. He's joined us once before.
It's good to see you again.
Back by popular demand.
Oh, man.
Jeremy, it was
invited back.
How about that? So Jeremy was chief counsel to the Senate Judiciary Committee. All those years we lived in DC. And he, based on that experience and all of his involvement since on an ongoing basis on these federal issues, has really become an expert on legal and constitutional issues. He's now a principal with the Rabin Group. And so he continues in this work just in a different capacity. So I hope you're ready for a grilling.
I'm ready. Just fire away. Let's go.
Okay. All right. I just want to start with this. How worried should we be right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I understand why people are so concerned and worried. I want to do a little bit of level setting here because I'm very worried about a lot of things about what this moment says about our democracy, the state of our republic. But I do want to say that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris they won the election. Yeah. They're going to be sworn in as president and vice president on January 20th. And we should talk about the what's and the hows. But I think if that is your concern, we have to stay vigilant. We need to stay focused. But here's the thing. Fear is an interesting thing. We've been living with this, as you said, for like every day since Donald Trump first came down that golden elevator, and certainly since he got elected president. And we sort of have not had the chance to breathe and take joy in this amazing triumph, this amazing moment. And just the fact that on January 20th, he's not going to be there. We don't have to care what he says, at least the way we do now, is something to be grateful for. So we can talk about fear. I mean, I sort of have a place I go with this, which I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. And I think about the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron James. They're down 3-1 to the Golden State Warriors, a 73-win Warrior team. And, one of the after the fact takes is that the Warriors lacked appropriate fear of the Cavaliers. They didn't believe that they could lose. Right. And LeBron James thought differently. And of course, the Cavs came back from 3-1 and won. And it was the Warriors' lack of appropriate fear. Appropriate fear should motivate you. It should keep you mobilized. It should not paralyze you. Mm-hmm. So that's where sort of the level set where I am is, hi, we know each other. I'm worried all the time about a lot of these things in a really deep way, but I'm not paralyzed. I am hopeful. And I think let's talk about the what and how.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk through the concerns. This has been a huge topic in our Facebook groups. So, decanted ladies, suburban housewives against Trump ladies. This is always about two-way communication and us hearing your concerns. And so we're going to talk through them tonight. So the top line one really is just Jeremy. It's, can he do this? Can he steal the election?
So, there's a lot of things going on with court cases and recounts, and it's a lot to unpack and a lot to digest when we've just been living in this worry for so long. The really good news is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won a very decisive victory. This wasn't one state. It wasn't hundreds of votes. It was 5 states and tens of thousands of votes. And so, first of all, recounts, and in some places there are recounts. There's a hand recount right now in Georgia. I don't know where else. I think that in Pennsylvania there'll be a recount. Recounts change at most a couple hundred votes, and there have been 3 statewide recounts since I've been born, since 1974, that switched the result of a statewide race, and they were like 200 vote margins. So that's not really an issue. The court cases are where a lot of people are focused.
Yeah, and wondering if in fact could he drive this all the way up to the Supreme Court, where he now has such a comfortable margin, and
First of all, you got to remember this is like classic Donald Trump MO, right? When he's backed in a corner, sue somebody, see if you can knock somebody down. That's what he's doing. These are laughably terrible lawsuits, and these are not. I am the first person to be afraid of this Supreme Court. I talked to you about it before. This Supreme Court is terrible for voting rights.
Jeremy's worked on like the last, 6, 7, 8 Supreme Court nomination.
You have me to blame for the 6-3 Trump supermajority in the Supreme Court. John Roberts on down, they're terrible on this. So we have a lot to worry about voting rights and vote suppression. And I was worried going into the election, if it's a close election, will they decide, their one case that's at the Supreme Court is about the days after the election, and in Pennsylvania, they can, return absentee ballots. If they're postmarked by election, if they come in 3 days after. Turns out the spec's like 1,500 votes, some small number of votes, well within the margin in Pennsylvania. That's the one case that's at the Supreme Court, the one case that has any merit, and it's meritless. These others are so bad that the law firms bringing the cases are receiving public criticism for them. Judges are laughing them out because they're like, hey, you know what you need to win a court case? Evidence. And they're not even presenting any evidence. So I'm not worried about the courts.
Okay.
It is because, though, really, that this was a decisive win.
Yeah.
This is the biggest victory by a challenger against an incumbent since FDR. This is, it's going to be 80 million votes. It's going to be a 5 million plus vote margin. Yeah. And in the key states, it isn't 500 votes. It's thousands of votes and many more in the case of Pennsylvania. So, no, he cannot steal this election through the courts.
Same thing when it comes to law or executive action. There is no power that exists for him to do this.
No, I mean, maybe in his mind, there are some power, right? This is a really troubling stress test for our constitutional democracy, because as we have learned to our peril over the last 4 years, a lot of what we rely on are norms, their behaviors, their shame, right? You're shamed into behaving the way people behave, and none of that applies to Donald Trump. So make no mistake, if he could, successfully have a coup and take over and stay in office, he would. He is really, he can't snap his fingers and go. The Secret Service doesn't just stay in power. There's not going to be a military junta that takes him out. I mean, so I think we should really feel very confident that those things aren't happening. Now, there are really destabilizing things happening as a result of his failure to concede and of the sort of in the way of the orderly transition powers that mainly don't have to do with legal power. To me, they mainly have to do with the fact that so many of his supporters, the millions of people that voted for him, one of the jobs of a leader is to bring the people along to accept a loss and to transition. That's this beautiful thing about our country dating back to George Washington and on, this sort of remarkable, peaceful transition of power. That's really partly about the government. It's partly about the people. We fight really hard. Every election is the most important election, and you lose, and you're disappointed, you're sad, you cry and you drink, but you accept and you go get them the next time. Yeah. And that is the thing that I am worried about is eroding here. And what does that mean?
Okay, I was going to get to the transition later, but let's
sure.
get into it now. Okay, so
we actually prepped a little, and I just totally screwed it up. So I'll pay for it later.
That's life and marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, we have one child that also could walk in here and join us at any moment. So it's a little spontaneous, and that's okay. So when it comes to into the transition, a lot of people are asking, what do we do if Biden can't access the things that he needs for him and his team to do their jobs, and how long, do we expect this process to go on? When will the election be ratified? Just walk us through a little bit, like what is an issue for real right now in terms of the transition process, and maybe a little bit of the timeline.
Yeah, so there are some things that are happening now anyway, and some things that should be happening that aren't, right? So transition is always a super weird time. That's a legal term, super weird, because you really, especially in this case where somebody loses, right? And then you're expecting all these government agencies that are run by political appointees that have a different agenda to sort of arrange, do memos, meet with their counterparts that are going to take over, and you sort of hand over the keys. In the national security arena, of course, most of all, there has to be a seamless transition of power. And then at this moment where we have this pandemic and the virus and people dying every day, it is so important that there be a government ready to take, at noon on the 20th, the keys hand over. And so most of the government is populated by civil servants. It isn't political appointees. People don't lose their job, but you have this whole layer of people. Normally what happens is a governmental agency called the General Service Administration, the GSA, which is sort of like the government landlord. They ascertain almost right away that somebody has won the election, the president-elect has won, they certify that, and then a whole set of these big governmental resources sort of come into the fold of the new team. That's office space, and it's access to sort of official FBI resources for vetting, new hires. It's also, and this is critical, access to agency records and budgets so they can prepare a budget for the next year. And most importantly of all, the president-elect starts receiving the president's daily briefing, which is the key sort of intelligence product every day. Now, a lot of jokes go around. This will be the first time somebody's read that in years, because what's Trump been up to? But so because this GSA official, who's a Trump appointee, has not ascertained this, just and should have, and there's a congressional committee that's already asking questions, may subpoena her. The Biden is not receiving the presidential daily brief. These resources aren't handed over. We sort of need, and we're at this sort of early enough point that you really, it's not critical, but we want that stuff to happen. So let's just talk about some of the things that are happening. The vetting process has actually been going on for a while, right? There's a team of lawyers looking at potential hires. There are policy papers being generated. And just this week, there are the creation of what are called landing teams, which are teams of experts. At the Raven Group in DC, we're talking to a bunch of these folks and learning like who former Obama administration officials, people that run nonprofits that are experts in this space, people that have worked in Congress, come in for little teams, sort of get ready to take over each agency, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, Department of Education. These are experts, and they are doing their work right now.
I also have to think that these agencies have been so hollowed out. There's been such dysfunction or lack of function.
Yeah, it's like, what are they going to find, right? I mean,
it's just these landing teams. It's actually so hopeful to me of the functionality that is coming in, and how much of a loss is it that they might not have the cooperation from the existing agency when
it's got a real flavor of rescue to it. I mean, it's something where you see the list of people that are coming in. It's this unbelievable expertise being brought to bear to government. It's very exciting, and they just sort of released the list of the White House Ledge Affairs team, the people that work with Congress, and there's like, oh my God, these people really know what they're doing. And so it's like this really, for nerds like me, it's this grand restoration of like how government can operate. We saw it, by the way, most of all, I think, with the COVID, the sort of one announced thing is this sort of COVID task force.
Yeah.
It's all public health officials. It's nobody's like clown son-in-law.
It's so good.
For the grift operation, it's like the people that, and by the way, that's what I'm looking to is, all the day one things that they have to be ready for, all the executive actions they have to be ready for. The first thing, and probably second, third, fourth, fifth thing, is going to be the COVID-19 response, deployment of this vaccine. So having these experts ready to take over. So that's us happening. And by the way, everybody's working remote. It's not like these people need a building to work in. So the lack of access to the, yes, they should have the secret files. So, but here's the tell. Here's how things are actually shifting. If you want sort of a reason to feel confident this transition is happening, more and more Republican senators are saying, no, Biden needs to receive the intelligence briefings. That is super secret code for it's time to ascertain that he's coming in as president-elect. They don't want to say it because they don't want to upset the toddler in chief. But it's really the sign that they know whatever they're saying out there, that this transition is happening, and that they understand how vital it is that the president. So I actually think like we should do a drinking game betting pool. I think it's probably just a matter of days or maybe a week, sometime before they ascertain, and then that transition really gets underway. The other dates to look at, I could be wrong, are that there's this whole series of the states certifying the election. Right. And it's a calendar. I should have it, but it started November 5th with maybe Vermont, and a couple other states have already certified. That goes on through December 11th. Each state has its own process. On December 14th, the Electoral College votes. So at each stage in that process, this election gets more and more baked in. Like whatever the recounts and the challenges are, those are the dates that kind of clock it in. And so certainly by mid-December, right, at the latest has happened. But I think it started to turn a lot today, actually.
So what I've heard is that there's been a lot of focus on the things that are not happening because Trump is doing his best to hold them up. But maybe not enough focus on all of the things that are happening in terms of the adults in all the rooms coming in and that work finally happening. And, in fact, so much of this work hasn't been happening for the last 4 years. And so there's a lot of positive progress occurring. There are a few things that are critical that are not happening. It's abnormal. It's not okay. It's not a big deal. But the winds are beginning to turn. It's going to become more and more difficult for the tantrum to stop the things that happen.
Well, Trump's been tweeting, but he hasn't been talking. I mean, it's very interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's like a weird. You're almost...
Okay, let's get to those. All right. Yeah. So the tweets, and I'm not here to. I mean, one of the things I'm most looking forward to, like about my life in the coming months and years, is that I don't need to know what Donald Trump is tweeting.
Yes.
It's not like good for any of our headspace, and we can start to make room for other much more productive things.
Yes.
But what he has been talking about.
Why is our 5.5-year-old tweeting? He doesn't tweet.
Please, let's not have that happen anytime soon. Although I think his tweets would be more responsible. So anyway,
a lot of dinosaur stuff.
That's true. So a lot of what Trump is tweeting about right now are these claims of voter fraud. Referring to all kinds of conspiracy theories and right-wing news outlets ginning up these false stories that have all been debunked. But I think it does raise the stress level of people who are concerned about this, saying, is there any chance that these claims of voter fraud actually hold up? Jeremy?
No. Yeah, so I can say more, but no. So let's talk about voter fraud, just to start. Again, let's level set.
Please.
Voter fraud is like this magic unicorn that Republicans chase every year. Voter fraud and the myth of voter fraud did not start with Donald Trump. He is like its avatar, but like everything, he never did anything himself. He was handed it by his daddies in the Republican Party. And it is shorthand for how do we stop Black people from voting? It is really a part and parcel of this horrific history of vote suppression in this country. And there have been study after study after study, including Trump had a commission early in his presidency that tried to find voter fraud, in-person voter fraud. It's easier to get hit by lightning than it is to find an incident of in-person voter fraud, let alone in the hundreds and thousands of instances you'd have to find to change an election. And yet it's being used to justify these laws that you should not have to stand in line in Cobb County in Georgia for 11 hours to be able to vote. That is vote suppression. Like all these barriers and the signature checks and the witness requirements, it's all bullshit. It is something that absolutely should not happen. And it's the myth of voter fraud that puts us upon it. So Trump seizing on voter fraud is just like playing the Republican greatest hits. And by the way, don't think that that's going to go away when Trump goes away. This is a permanent feature here. And it's something we have to eradicate, the myth of voter fraud. But these claims in particular are ridiculous. We had to fight uphill for every vote in this. The vote, by the way, turnout was massive on both sides. So this is the biggest turnout election in over a century. Turns out, by the way, when you can vote by mail, it makes it easier for people to participate. It's great. Yeah. Republicans generally vote by mail more. There's no elevated risk of voter fraud if you vote by mail. I know you know this. You've been evangelizing about this through all these channels.
In fact, I voted by mail and you did too.
I voted by mail, yes. And so no, and in this case, they're trying really hard to find it and bringing these cases in court, and what they don't have is evidence, and they cannot prove it. And here's what's interesting: all these Republican secretaries of state in like places like Georgia are absolutely, in Arizona, the attorney general are standing by their processes. They're like, this was a fair election. There's whole multi-agency U.S. cybersecurity division, the Homeland Security Division in all these states just came out with a statement a couple hours ago that said this was the safest election in U.S. history. There was no electronic or cyber intrusion. No vote was changed. Wow. Now the question is, does Donald Trump fire the guy that runs it because he did his job well and he's telling the truth? But none of these votes, they simply have not found any voter fraud. It isn't going to change anything. This was a really interesting because I think Georgia is so important. And
Georgia is so important.
So the U.S. Senate, the Democrats can control the U.S. Senate if we win these 2 runoffs in your home state of Georgia. And we have a real shot. And this is incredibly important for the scope of ambition of this administration, for the ability to get appointments through, kind of stimulus, COVID relief. Like, we need to shut down these restaurants. And what we should be doing is paying restaurants to stay closed instead of putting people's jobs at risk. That takes an act of Congress, right? All these things. We got to win that election in Georgia. It's a big runoff. So Kelly Loeffler and Perdue, the 2 Republican senators, came out swinging at the call for the Republican Secretary of State to resign because Joe Biden won Georgia. Mm-hmm. And the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the paper of record in Atlanta, above the fold ran an op-ed that said basically they should be embarrassed. Secretary of State's doing a great job. This is insane. Yeah. So we've done a lot of good education about how insane these claims are. Yeah. It's good that they're trying them in court and they're losing.
Okay, so we have Donald Trump making these claims.
I care a lot about voter fraud, by the way. This is the Voting Rights Act.
Is this passion obvious?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. We know, and I'm glad.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Anyone around Donald Trump knows that these claims will never, actually make it through as a right. They know that. In much the same way that, all of these, everything he's ginning up on Twitter and whatever platforms. The whole notion of there is some fear, is this a coup? Is he trying to stage a coup? Is this, will he actually ever leave? And one point you made when we've been discussing this lately was, is really his goal not to leave? It's ultimately just about political power, positioning among the base, fundraising. I mean, if Donald Trump said 5 minutes ago or an hour from now, like, oh, I concede.
I don't think he ever wanted to be president. I mean, it seems weird to me that he'd want to stay. He's obviously miserable. But yes, I think you gotta understand what he's trying to do, right? It is. Yeah, I think he would stay in office if he could. I think because he's so embarrassed that it's incomprehensible to him that he's got his ass handed to him right in this election.
Well, and protection from legal challenges.
But protection from legal challenges, right, is one. I mean, there's so much legal liability, and he has this sort of thing around him and his family as president, both the actual powers of the presidency as well as the sort of difficulty of bringing charges against members of his family. He wants to make money. This is a person who we know from the tax returns that leaked those $400 million coming due soon. And his whole thing is a grift. He's like raising all his money for his legal defense fund, and like half of it just literally funnels into his bank account, basically. I mean, this is so. And I also think he is playing to control the Republican Party and narrative for the next number of years. Whether he intends to run again in 4 years, or one of his kids, or just wants to be a kingmaker or queenmaker, that is, I think those things are all in play. It's incomprehensible to him to be irrelevant, right? So he really wants to be. So
it's a lot of theater. I think it's important for us to take it all seriously and see how outside of norms this is, how it's not okay to operate within a democracy this way, but also to understand.
But here's the theater of it. The danger of the theater is not that Donald Trump hangs on. Yeah. It isn't that he commits incredible grift on the way out, and he will, and of course. It is his supporters, right? It is that there are many millions of people that believe the theater is real, that believe that believe this election was stolen. Yeah. And our democracy really depends on people just kind of like, as I said earlier, it's like saying I lost and moving on, being pissed off and moving on. And so there's a destabilizing effect of this theater. But the real problem, as with everything in the Trump presidency, is not Donald Trump and his craziness. It is the enablers in the Republican Party, these supposedly responsible Republican senators that all needed to say, I look forward to working with Vice President-elect Joe Biden. Right. And like, I wish this didn't happen, but this happened, and we are the United States of America. The fact that they all feel beholden to him, and by the way, I think a lot of it is explainable. This is politics, not law, because I think Mitch McConnell is focused on the Georgia runoffs too to maintain control of the Senate. Yeah. So they're really beholden to Trump's base, which scares them. So they all have to kind of placate the base and placate the toddler in chief. And it's very destabilizing.
And they want them to come out in the Georgia runoffs.
Yes, they want them to
If
come
there
and
is
vote.
no longer the idea, the myth that Trump could still be president, the
Right.
fire in the belly goes away. The Trump voters become just Trump followers who are disillusioned.
They might be able to disillusion. And by the way, I
Right.
wouldn't put it past Donald Trump to himself try to skunk it for them, because why should they get elected without him? I mean, right? Like, that's the worst. Like, everybody should need Donald Trump. I mean, in some ways, Donald Trump is now the Republican Party's problem, right? This isn't our problem.
Yeah.
But right now, certainly, while we're trying to manage this transition, and I think the power he holds to destabilize democracy, even out of office, we're going to continue to contend with. I know you want to talk a little bit about the military
I
pieces
can't believe
before we-
what time it is. Like, we have to make sure there's two more subjects we've really got to cover. So one is, what can you tell us about what's going on at the Pentagon with this shuffling of leadership, and what do you think it means? What's the concern?
I mean, some of this is extraordinarily concerning, and some of it is not. I'll tell you what's not first.
Okay.
I do not believe that there is a chance that the military backs Donald Trump in a coup, that they're trying to somehow take over. I actually think what happened at Lafayette Square, now Black Lives Matter Plaza in DC this summer, with the tear gassing and that march to Donald Trump to the church, and the sort of embarrassment and retrenching that ensued from military officers that went along with it, was a good stress test, and that the military is like, we cannot be party to this. So
no kidding. And I have to note, I mean, the massive swing of veterans in voting in this election. He received the lowest level of support a Republican I think ever has.
Yeah, from veterans and people in the military. And it's by the way, it's one of the things it's one of the facts that these Republican observers are bringing in. Are like, I keep seeing these Biden ballots and their military ballots kind of high. That must be fraudulent.
Right.
He's a military daddy.
Consequences.
You didn't call them suckers losers, right? But but look, our military is highly professionalized. There's a serious officer corps. There's traditions, and even at the Pentagon, there's this whole civil service level. So I'm not worried about coup. I am wondering what's going on. He is axing a bunch of Republican appointees to put in real partisan hacks, and whether it is to cover up classified information, destroy documents, to try to pull classified information, make it public that he considers exonerating on Trump Russia. Whether it's to find secrets that'll sell the highest bidder, I don't know. That stuff is all really in play and scary.
So ultimately, then, an extension of that, one question that comes up a lot is, can he pardon himself then?
So this is one of those really weird areas of law where we kind of don't know, because nobody's ever tried. So most legal scholars think that he has an obligation to take care. It's in the Constitution to take care. To sort of follow the law, to take care of his oath to the Constitution. The take care clause is considered very important, that there are other aspects of the Constitution that bind him to the people and acting to the people and not at his own personal behalf. He is sure as hell going to try, right? And try really broadly. Can he pardon his family? Many scholars say no. Some say yes. Can he do a really broad pardon that covers all kinds of, he's going to try. Here's one thing to feel good about. A lot of Donald Trump's legal liability is in the state of New York and in other places where a pardon means absolutely nothing.
Right.
So they're coming for him. And for tax fraud and charity fraud and all this stuff. I mean, all those Supreme Court cases about his legal records actually relate a lot to the New York state cases that are pending. So
he can't pardon himself from that.
Yeah.
And that's where he's in the deepest.
Yeah. But I think it is one of those, you punch you in the nose on the way out things where it's like, we really almost didn't anticipate presidents acting this brazenly in their own self-interest.
Right.
We've had terrible ideologues, we've had wrong thinkers, we've had terrible slaveholders, we had awful presidents.
Yeah.
We've had genocidal maniacs, we've had terrible presidents. But I think what's unique about Donald Trump is he is just so brazen in acting his own immediate, corrupt, venal self-interest and not any notion of like the greater interest of the people. He's absolutely going to be who he was on the way out the door.
Right. So which is the exact same way he was on the way in. So we have our final minute, Jeremy.
Okay.
And we have to address the thing that is actually, I think, and I know you agree, is the most important.
Does this count as date night?
No, it does not.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the question.
But we do have drinks.
Hey, cheers.
Cheers. Okay. The question is, what role can we all play in this?
Okay, so this is where I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to you. But I also want to say thank you to Suburban Housewives Against Trump. I hope that I know that it will continue past Trump. Hopefully not against the next Trump. Red, White, and Blue. So you all did your part and then some, and you have started to transform politics in America. And it's not just the results in the election. To me, it is the quality of ongoing engagement and civic engagement. One of the things that the Republicans actually have going for them is that their communities are talking to each other all the time. It isn't a political campaign coming in. A lot of it is social media, a lot of it's toxic, but it isn't a campaign coming in telling people how to talk to each other. It's talking to each other all the time. So your best weapon against the concerns and the taking away of democracy is to continue to be vigilant, continue to be engaged. And you can't let this go. Like the turnout in midterms is so much harder. We have a recount fight ahead. We have Georgia coming up. So I want to say thank you, but also keep going. Keep going. So I really believe this. I'm just so proud to be sort of a small part of what has happened here. And here's the last thing. I'm disappointed about the Senate because I've worked in the Senate. I'm disappointed about Ohio.
It ain't over yet.
But we won.
Yeah.
All this concern, set it aside. You won. We won. January 20th is going to feel like a much different day.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah.
And let's just also know we have to stay in this, and I have no doubt that we are. And the even better news is that we're staying in this together. Okay, so nobody is going to be in this alone. We got each other's backs. This is a community now, and I'm so glad to be in it with all of you. And he's not bad either.
Yes, we are also a community at our.
All right, I think we need to go to bedtime. Is it
For
my
me?
night or
Can I go to
yours?
sleep? Oh no! Oh, for Link. Oh,
In
okay.
fact, I think you have stories.
Yeah, I got stories.
Okay, all right. It was so good to be with you guys as always.
Cheers.
See you soon.